Hello everybody, it's Simon and I'm for once in English. You can see my not really good accent in English, but I am glad to receive Jared Tendler here. Hi Jared, how are you?
Simon, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Yep,
And
so
hello to everybody at Kill Tilt. It's been a while.
I hope fine, because we made a lot of interviews lately. And I thought, why not interviewing yourself? Because we never did that. And I asked the community to send us some questions. And so here we are. I will ask you some global questions about yourself, your career,
Sure.
etc. Some personal questions I thought about preparing the interview. And after we will have question of the community. It will take not more than 1 hour. So if you have questions, ask them in the comments on YouTube, and maybe I'll send you the best question after, Jared, if you can
Sure.
can answer. Maybe I will translate it after. Okay, so just present yourself. How old are you? Where do you live? And tell us about what are you doing, because many people actually don't know you. So here you go.
Yeah, so I'm a mental game coach. I've been doing this for around 13 years now. I'm now 39 years old. I've got a wife and family. I live in Pennsylvania in the U.S. Recently moved out of New York City into a house into the suburbs, out of the city. So it's sort of a nice area here. Okay. And yeah, I mean that's what I do. So I work with poker players. That's kind of where I made kind of most of my name has been with poker. For the last 10 years, I've been coaching poker players.
Okay.
Wrote 2 books, which we've obviously translated together.
Yep.
Yeah, but I've also worked with golfers. That's where I started. Mm-hmm. And more recently, I've worked with traders or people in the financial industry. I've worked with esports athletes. I'm contracted to work with it's called Team Liquid. So anybody?
Yeah, I know this team a lot because LK was in Team Liquid in StarCraft, and I played a lot of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and I have a great team in Team Liquid. So
there you go. So I work with the League of Legends team. I work with the Dota 2 team and the Counter-Strike team.
Oh, great. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, but because the French best Counter-Strike team is looking for a mental game coach, but in French. if I had time, maybe I tried that, but it's really...
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and also more recently I've worked with entrepreneurs and business people. So, my coaching has kind of begun to expand outwards, but poker is still kind of my bread and butter.
Okay, and I just thought about that. Did you coach some people in like cryptocurrencies? Because a lot of poker players are switching to that. I'm sure you are aware of all this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yes, and there has been a lot of my poker clients who I've had cryptocurrency conversations with. I've had also people who've come to me from the crypto space. Okay. And by and large, and I wrote an article on poker strategy about 3 months ago, I'd say, maybe not as much. Basically warning poker players about their relative fishiness in being a cryptocurrency trader, or just even an investor. At this point in time, that advice might not be quite as worthwhile as it was in November. So hopefully people have not risked large sums or large percentages of their bankroll in cryptos. And we're able to be a bit more diversified. So, but that's another topic.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have time, it would be great if you can share me the article you wrote, and maybe I can take a look, because it's right that many poker players, when they switch to cryptocurrencies, they just forget bankroll management. That's just funny.
Yeah. I mean, and I know many that have like literally almost their entire bankroll in crypto.
Yeah, they went all in. Yeah, I heard that in French.
And if you went all in, at the end of 2016 or even early 2017, and were able to sell, I mean, even if you didn't, you still have made a ton of money based on where things are now. But
but that's kind of result oriented too, because
it is. Of course.
It could have been a lot worse. But yeah, okay. We won't waste a lot of time on this. So you talked about being a mental game coach on golf, and tell us about more. What was you doing before being a mental game coach? And I can spoil a bit. I know you was playing golf a lot, but even before that, sorry for the spoil.
Yeah, no. I mean, like I was a golfer. I mean, I still consider myself to be a golfer. That's the thing that I love to do the most.
But at what age did you begin golf? Seriously, I mean.
Like seriously, like around 12.
Oh, okay.
I probably started picking up a club and would play like in December when I'd go down to visit my grandparents in Florida, 8, 9 years old. But I wasn't really playing then much. It was like once a week.
Okay.
From like 12 years old to 17, 18, took things very, very seriously and kind of really got a lot better pretty quickly. Eventually was one of the top players in my home state. Not nationally. I didn't get that good that quickly. Okay. But good enough to go play in college. And in college, I was a 3-time All-American. I won 9 tournaments. And really was motivated to try to play professionally.
Okay.
And in that time period, while I was competing very well at the national collegiate level, any time that I sort of stepped up to try to play, national yeah. Like elite amateur events or even some small professional events, like trying to qualify for the U.S. Open, trying to qualify for a PGA Tour event, I found myself basically choking in the place that I was the weakest, which was on the putting green. So, tee to green, hitting driver, hitting iron shots, that I was very, very good at. Okay. But around the greens, that's where my game was the weakest, and that's where the pressure would really kind of break me.
It was like what? You was anxious or?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah, the fear and the pressure, like what was on the line. I mean, it was a dream of mine to play professionally, and here I am with an opportunity to start to realize that, you don't want to mess up, you don't want to fail, you don't want to make mistakes, and so that's where I realized that was the problem. Started trying to get some help with the sort of typical golf psychology material that was available at the time. And it did actually help. I'm not going to say that it didn't help, but what it didn't do was solve the problem.
Yeah, and like you got conscious of the problem, but it didn't solve it deeper. That's this.
Yeah, I'd say I got conscious of it. I made some small improvements, so it wasn't as bad, but it wasn't solved enough. To actually give me the opportunity to like really pursue it. Because after college, I mean, I'm making a decision. I'm basically saying, okay, I'm going to invest $100,000 to $200,000 to try to make it as a professional golfer, which is around what it takes because the cost of playing the game, traveling, entering tournaments, it's a bit like kind of like playing mini tour golf, like the tours that exist before you become like a elite PGA Tour player is actually a lot like playing satellite tournaments.
Okay,
I
understand.
Trying to qualify, and it's you get paid only if you make the cut. You're paying for your entry fees, you're paying for your travel, you're paying for your caddy, you're paying for your practice. I mean, there's a lot of expenses. So unless I were to like make a lot of money really quickly, it was going to cost a lot to get to the point to even have the opportunity to start to qualify for the big events.
Okay.
So basically I would have to build a bankroll, but I needed some kind of investment bankroll to get myself started.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just not somebody who's going to sort of like just try something. I really needed to believe that I could do it, and at the time I didn't believe I could because this problem still was there.
Okay.
So I decided to kind of forego that, and I got a master's degree in counseling psychology with the goal of trying to combine the traditional sports psychology, golf psychology with therapy as a way of finding a way to solve problems at a deeper level than what was kind of provided to me. And I realized that like if I was able to sort of find this, I could solve my issues and play professional golf, or I could solve my issues and become a coach for other people like me.
Yeah.
And so I got my license. I got my master's degree. It took 2 years. It took me 2 years and 3,200 hours of supervised practice where I was just working as like a traditional therapist with kids and families about anger issues, anxiety issues, ADHD, bipolar, like some big heavy kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that kind of gave me that was like my training ground.
Yeah.
And then once I got my license, I quit my job and flew out to Arizona and moved to Arizona and started building my golf practice there, and also giving myself an opportunity to start kind of regaining my game. And both things happened. So I started building up a really good client roster, amateur golfers, some professional golfers, and my game was continuing to get better, and eventually got to the point where I started playing in some of those small mini tour events. I didn't do very well, but it was the beginning, and I was very happy. I wasn't doing poorly because I was getting nervous. That's the thing. I was doing poorly because my game had gotten so rusty that it was just taking me some time to kind of get back back sharp. But mentally and emotionally, those issues were gone, and now my clients were sort of reaping the benefits of that as well. And it was around that time when I met a poker player who used to be a pro golfer.
Yeah, LIVRES. That's it.
LIVRES, exactly.
Dusty Schmidt? No, it's Dusty Schmidt.
This is back. Dusty Schmidt. Yeah. So this is back in 2007. So we're going back almost 11 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very long time. And so, he was kind of like the ideal first poker client because he was able to kind of talk to me about poker in golf terms. Mm-hmm. So like getting unlucky was easy to sort of describe because there's a lot of luck in golf too. It's not as much as in poker, but you can get bad bounces. The wind can have an effect. The way that the green
reacts. There are a lot of external issues that you don't have any control on, and it can influence your. Yeah. I mean it.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit a decent shot, but it hits a rock and goes out of bounds. It hits a tree and it comes back in bounds. I mean, there's a lot that can happen, but there was a very clear carryover from what I was doing with golfers, the system that I had developed with golfers, to poker, and it sort of just really kind of gave me this like big broad vision, because at that point in golf, what I was realizing was it was difficult to break into the, let's call it like the recreational market, like the golfers who were serious but didn't make any money from it, and what I found was that they just were lazy. Right? They only wanted like very kind of quick fix answers.
Yeah.
They didn't have a ton of time to really devote to it. They knew that they needed it, but they weren't willing to spend the money on it.
Yeah.
Recreational poker players can make money. I mean, there's a lot of people who are, making money from the game, even though it's not their full-time job. So the scale of the market to me was just much more obvious.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were no other real mental game coaches at the time doing this.
It was a great opportunity, yeah.
Huge opportunity. In golf, I was competing against a lot of other, golf psychologists, and they were older than me. They had more experience.
Yeah.
So I was trying to break into the market. Meanwhile, so I just sort of dove into poker. I mean, I still have kept clients in golf all these years, but poker is really kind of where my career took off.
Okay, so. Perfect answer. You have a big background. And so golf, are you still playing golf for fun, or you don't really have time?
The answer is yes and yes. I don't have time, but I do still play. And I do still play at a high level. And I still play in some tournaments and trying to qualify for, some big amateur events. And, for the most part, I've done really well considering that I play 10 to 12 times a year.
Yeah,
I'm almost playing as well as I was several years ago.
Great.
But I've done, I qualified for a very big event 3 years ago. It's called the U.S. Mid-Amateur. It means for any amateur who's over 25 years old.
Okay.
So I was among, the top 150 amateurs of that age category from around the country at this tournament. So it was a really cool experience.
Great. It's really interesting. Okay. So we know a lot about you now, and you explained this in the book. If people want further details, I think you can see what you felt when you was choking on golf, and it's a lot like when people are choking in poker because they are playing in cash game NL 50 and they fear to beat the NL 100, and they get a ton of pressure when the stakes are high. So there are a lot of analogies. So now. But by the way, how many clients have you coached so far in like 10, 13 years? Just an order of.
Yeah, so I've had, let's say, like around 500 individual clients.
Okay.
But I've also consulted with like a number of staking groups where I've done like kind of group seminars where I've had. But yeah.
it's a question that pops in my head now, but do you see like kind of profiles in your clients? You know, like in poker, you have tight players, loose players, aggressive players, scary players, etc., etc. Do you see like 3, 4, I don't know, 5, maybe more big kind of profiles? I know that there are some new nuances. Everybody is unique. I get it, but do you see something like this, a profile, a typical profile?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard to say because I typically don't think in those terms. I typically think about people as having, sets of characteristics or like sets of problems, or so like we could look at people who are players who are like highly motivated but have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Then there are people who are reasonably motivated, but they have only kind of 1 or 2 issues.
Okay.
Then you have one player, a player who is like incredibly motivated, one of the best players in the world, and we're dealing with really kind of fine-tuned, kind of small types of issues.
Okay.
Or opportunities to take their game, to be in the zone more often, play more often, things like that.
Okay. So yeah, you answered one of my questions before, so I won't ask this one. What are the best improvements you made on your own mental skills, both in golf and I asked, did you made some improvement in real life? Like, okay, you told us that you handled your pressure, that's it. But did you make any other improvements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, golf is like the easy place to see it, and that was really kind of the extent of it. It was about pressure. In my personal life, I've gone through confidence issues. I've had I wouldn't say like severe anger issues. I'm not like an angry person, but certainly like
resentment.
Not necessarily resentment. It's more like I typically being in control is something that's important to me. And so, when I'm driving in a car and, there's traffic or there's bad drivers, like in the past, that was a problem. Having a young child, as really kind of test that because it becomes kind of a battle of control. And sometimes I've lost my patience in being able to, kind of properly parent my daughter. And that's, pretty common, but again, something that has definitely improved over the years. Confidence issues, kind of came more as like it has taken a lot for me to put out these books and kind of, you're putting yourself out there. It's something that like really is a part of me. It matters to me. It's fused into kind of who I am and what I do. And so, making the material something that is really powerful and helpful for people, it's like, it matters to me. And so, early on, some of the criticism that I would get for the book or people that didn't quite get it, it would kind of like really just sort of spark that weakness in my confidence. And so over time, kind of having that experience and also just kind of maturing and kind of understanding more about what was causing my confidence issues, that has gotten a lot stronger. And so, my ability to create new material and work on new projects, like, test myself against kind of, let's say with bigger name clients, with bigger opportunities, places that would typically have been more sort of fear inducing. It's been quite a lot easier now. So I'd say just emotional stability has continued to grow for me over time.
Okay, that's great. Because in my experience, maybe the benefits of working on one mental game, it was more obvious in the real life. I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe in real life it was a bit more obvious with my girlfriend or friends or playing video games or driving car. It was more obvious for me because in poker, yes, I was not that expressive, because I'm alone in front of a screen, so sometimes I don't see why I tilt or if I tilt. Anyway, so yeah, just 2 quick questions, but I don't think you will have to make long answers, but from your own experience, What are the top 3 mental skills a great poker player should have? According to you.
Yeah, like number one, and I would say that it's a requirement to be among the best.
Okay.
Is just your motivation and your drive. You know, if you don't have that, like you just can't get there. Number two is just a love for the game itself.
Yeah.
You can get to the top without that, you know, but the second that it really becomes a job, the second the fun and the enjoyment, even if it's difficult, like I think sometimes people think that it has to always be like fun, like at an amusement park, or fun like you're with your friends.
No, of course.
And it's not like that at all. Like you can have a deep sense of joy and fun, even though it's really, really hard. And I know that for myself because like I love to play golf when there's bad weather, when it's windy and it's rainy. To me that's just fun. Like I get to kind of like bear down and dig down, and you know, and you just get to kind of do some things you can't normally. So you have to be able to enjoy and love the game. Number three, you have to have emotional stability. And that it doesn't mean that you're going to be without emotional issues or without some emotional variation where you feel some tension, you know, you lose some confidence, become a little bit overconfident, have some anger. It is fine to have all of those things, but it has to be stable enough and capable of being in control enough. Otherwise, you just have no chance.
Okay, that's perfect answer. And I see that it's, in my opinion, it's the same in music. You know, if you want to get to the top, you have to be passionate, like insane motivation to be one of the best guitar players, for example. And of course, it won't be all fun if you want to get to the top at guitar or any form of competition. It will take some hard work. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but you have to do it. But anyway, you have a deep sense of passion and fun and high motivation, and that's really important. I think that in poker so many players are just here for the money, and that's such a common sense, but that's true, and they don't like to talk about the game, the theory of the game and stuff like that. So I think we have a lot to learn on motivation, deep motivation. And the same question but for leaks. What are the top 3 mental leaks that you see many often in poker players?
Yeah, I mean, it was back in 2011 when the first book came out, and it still is today, which is tilt. I mean,
for sure.
Poker makes people angry, and it's very, very difficult, I think, to remove that issue entirely. So tilt and anger, still number one. Laziness.
Laziness for sure. Laziness are in the top 3 for sure.
And laziness is a difficult thing to like even say, because I actually think that it's lazy to call yourself lazy.
Yeah, it's too simple.
It's too simple. Exactly. What you're not doing is you're not really understanding your motivational profile. You're not understanding that by choosing to watch 5 hours of Netflix, that you're doing that for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
And so once you start to understand the reasons that you're not doing what you think you ought to be doing in poker, it becomes easier to solve. But yes, so we've got anger, we've got
laziness,
and we've got confidence issues.
Overconfidence or underconfidence? Lack of confidence.
So I typically don't see the people who are overconfident.
Yeah.
Overconfident people don't. Yeah,
that's right.
Now, typically, even the people that I see have some forms of overconfidence, but that tends not to be their predominant issue. So yeah, overconfidence is typically more of a problem with the weaker poker players, which sounds strange, but that's how it works. They're so sort of unaware of how bad they are that they become overconfident. And so typically I'm dealing with the poker players who are aware how good everybody else is. They don't value their own skills as much, so they become underconfident. That's just kind of one reason why they are. But yeah, and the other thing is that I'm not saying fear. I'm not saying, you know, pressure or anxiety, because in my experience, confidence tends to more often relate and cause those fear and confidence issues. I'm sorry, those fear and anxiety issues comes back to confidence. So that's you know why I say it's number 3.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, I have a question. it's really personal, but actually we released a video on Kill Tilt about in English it would be, is poker making us sad or miserable or something like that. And many people like this video because I think many people, they tend to accuse the poker for being the reason of their unhappiness or frustration, anything. So do you think that it's harder to be happy when playing poker professionally than it is when playing any kind of sport professionally? It could be esport or golf or tennis or something like that. First part of the question.
So the problem with your question is that it's not really a fair comparison.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the numbers of professional poker players that are out there, they're far greater than there are the number of golfers or tennis players or
exactly.
So what happens is you get like the top 30 poker players in the world are not miserable.
yeah, that's
the
true.
Top 30 tennis players, golfers, like these very, very competitive environments put a lot of pressure on us. They make things hard, but by and large, like, they are not the cause of any unhappiness, right? They're going to only expose internal weakness.
Yeah.
But for people who are struggling, to make a living at poker, compared with somebody who is working a normal job, there are some elements of that situation which are more difficult and can make you temporarily unhappy. Okay. Yeah. But the opportunity to have, your own paycheck, to make your own hours. I mean, there are benefits that don't necessarily come with sort of the safety and security that typically come with, a job where somebody else is paying you.
And
so,
I tend to think that the security is more and more a problem in today's jobs, because we won't have a job for like 40 years or 30 years anymore, like it was the case in last generation. So it's a feeling of security, but I don't think it's that pertinent anymore. So.
Well, it's not real security. That's the thing. It's somewhat of an illusion, right? The real security in the job market, whether that's as a poker player or whether that's as let's say a hired salaried position, the real security comes from your own skill set.
Yeah.
Right. When you become so valuable in the market,
you will find something. Yeah.
You'll always have a job.
Exactly.
I'm never worried about my career in terms of being able to find work. Like, I know how good I am at what I do, and I know how much value I provide for other people. So if I have to move to different industries, I will.
Exactly.
But I know that I'm always going to be capable of finding a job because I have the skill, because I put the time and the effort and the work into developing it. Yeah. So as a poker player, you can look at not always just the poker skills, but look at the skills around it, the work ethic, the discipline, the scheduling, being able to study for hours at a time, being able to learn more efficiently, being able to solve some of your emotional stability issues. If you're able to do all of that within the context of poker, and then eventually you still have to get a salary job, you are still going to be so much more advanced than other people in that environment for having those skills.
Exactly. If you're becoming a great poker player, all the skills you get from this experience can help you a lot for other careers. And I speak that by experience, because I went from professional poker player from entrepreneur. And it helped me a lot, because being able to learn a whole new set of skills and stuff like that, and work ethics, discipline, fear of failing, but still continuing to improve, etc. So yeah, at least if you work well in poker, but it doesn't work after 1 year of big efforts, it's not entirely wasted, I think, because you have learned a lot in the process. It's my opinion, but okay. Next question: what do you think poker players should do to decrease the inherent unhappiness related to the frustration of this game? Maybe outside of the tables. I mean, what should they do to be more happy?
I mean, work on it. You can't distract yourself, right? You actually just have to face it and deal with it. So understand what's causing the unhappiness, right? If it's poor results, then create a process for being able to do that. One simple suggestion is to do a journal and to write and vent and get the emotions out of your head at the end of that session. It's a great way of kind of being able to put poker down and be able to go on with the rest of your life. For some players, they need to have more balance in their lives, but that's not always the case for everybody. I mean, I have clients. In fact, I was talking with one recently where, he has accepted the reality that poker is the most important thing in his life. Like, he is not hanging out with friends. He doesn't have other hobbies. He is, in some measures of the world, like unbalanced, but he has decided that's what he wants. And so what does it do? It puts greater pressure on him to be very diligent about solving the emotional variation that exists within the game and around the game, because he doesn't have the luxury of having distractions or hobbies or other people who can make him, kind of feel better. He has to do it all himself. Yeah. So, you can kind of choose between those two things. You can have other things in your life that can help you to do this, but you also sometimes just need to face the actual problems that you're experiencing and deal with them directly.
Okay, that's perfect. So I will have two questions that are a bit long. So no, it's not the end of the world, but it's a bit long. It's hypothetical situations, but I think many players in Kill Tilt will understand these situations, and I want your advice. So imagine the following situation for a professional poker player. He plays a good and solid poker according to him and his coach and friends. And I mean, really objectively, a lot of good friends, they rail him for like hours, like 3 hours a day. Many great players take a deep look at his game, and they say, no, you play good. But anyway, this player is down like 200 buy-ins in expected value and in all-in EV after a year of grind. So he has a big lack of chance. And he works every day on his technical and mental game issues, but he doesn't see any real big tilt and he's desperate. What should he do to significantly decrease this suffering? Like, if I have to sum up the question, he's objectively in a big downswing and it's not his fault. Sometimes it happens. Maybe only 1%, 5% players get this kind of real bad luck, but sometimes shit happens that's bad. And some players, they just feel desperate, like it's over, I have to quit this game. What should you say to something like that? Someone like that, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one really big factor that you're missing in your hypothetical is what's the skill gap in the games that he's playing. I mean, if he is playing against players of really equal skill, and these are like really tough games, without weak players as part of the pool, then that 200 buy-in down stretch, like, I mean, that might really be reasonable within that in that game. That's right. But if he is playing in some weaker games,
let's say he's playing in weaker games, like there are 1 or 2 fish at the table, and that's fine. He has a real edge on this.
A real edge. Okay, so it's basically, you're saying it's verified that the 200 buy-in down stretch is not his fault entirely. That it is one of those like 1 out of 1,000 outliers.
Exactly. This 1 out of 1,000. Exactly. I have met like 1 or 2 players in this situation. At least everybody thought that, okay, you just can't do anything, you are playing great, the pool player is bad and you have a big edge on them, because I had a sample of many hands, like 1 million hands with a good win rate, etc. But they get 1 year, it's total nightmare.
Yeah.
So what should he do to feel less desperate?
Okay, so situations like that are still going to expose underlying weakness, right? So it could be, so the desperation says to me that there's a loss of confidence, and that's certainly something that has to be worked on. But I would also really look very closely at all of the technical mistakes that are being made, right? Because even though a majority, let's say, of the losses are due to bad luck, you can't convince me that of those 200 buy-ins, it's all bad luck.
Exactly, yeah, for sure.
Over that sample. So, where are the C game mistakes? Where are the things that you are erring on? And why are those mistakes being made? It's not obviously going to be just a purely technical thing, but what's the emotional variation that exists within a session. So are you getting frustrated? Is that frustration building to the point where you make those mistakes?
Yeah.
Why does that frustration exist? Is it injustice tilt? Is it hate losing tilt? Is it mistake tilt? Is it a combination of all of them?
Yeah, yeah.
And so sort of what you need to do is create like kind of a map of the individual issues that are kind of arising in these situations, and create a plan to actually go through and solve each one of them. So that, so you can be consistently playing at a higher level. I'm not going to say you're playing perfectly or even playing your A game consistently is reasonable, but if your B game is still really profitable, if you're still making 3-4 BBs per 100, in those games playing your B game, then that's enough. And if you know that, and the games are not dramatically changing, then it's just eventually going to turn around. And there's not a whole lot you can do. This is what you signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. This is really important. This is your own responsibility to know that you signed up for this. Poker is sometimes like that. So your advice is to say, just control what you can control. Just focus on what you can control and improve, like your vision of things or your emotions or your limiting beliefs or stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. But a lot of players kind of come into poker thinking that the game is different. They have visions of making a lot of money. They want or dream about making a lot of money, and while they're aware that downswings are part of it and the risk involved, they really don't believe that is going to happen to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
and so that true. Is one of the sort of the core sources of these problems is players walking in with inherent overconfidence. I mean, the math is really really clear. You can't kind of work around it emotionally, except to try to manipulate the numbers in your mind. Yeah. But when if you were to objectively come into the game, not very at the beginning, but when you're going to start taking it seriously, and you do some calculations with a variance calculator, and you see, okay, well, the odds of me having a 200 buy-in downstretch, are 1 out of 10,000, something that's just complete outlier, and you don't believe that it's going to happen to you. Yeah. Then you know that you're overconfident because you can't control that.
Yeah. It just shit happens, and even the example is like 200 buy-ins, but in fact we don't care. It's 200 because past like 60-80 buy-ins, people just get mad, and the odds of 80 buy-ins downswing it's a lot. It happens a lot of time. I know many people that got buy-ins like that, so a downswing like that. So yeah, okay, that's fine for me for this question. We could talk a lot more, but we won't have time for the other questions if we don't stop. So yes, a question about improvements. So if a player doesn't find any friend or coach that can help him, or doesn't just have the money to afford a good one, how can he maximize his chances to improve by himself? Can you be as specific as possible?
Focus on what you know to be true and grow from there. So there are enough resources out there that you can help your game to evolve, but you have to know what your game looks like today and where it has come before. Okay. So the easiest way to start is to define very clearly, like, what is your current C game? What are the weaknesses that verifiably, like you don't need any outside feedback to know, these are the places where you suck.
Okay.
Start there. And as you fix those, you'll have ideas naturally about what next you need to work on.
Okay.
And when you identify what those are, but you don't necessarily know how to fix them, that's where you start gathering up resources. But you don't sort of just pick one and say, oh yeah, that's it. Do your research, gather it up, write it down, think about it, come back to it, think about it again, go play, think about it again. And it might take you, 2 to 3 weeks or even a month of playing, researching, thinking, reflecting, taking time off before you make a conclusion. But if you do it that way, then it will be easier to kind of grow your game organically on your own, rather than saying, okay, I don't know what to do next. I'm just going to pick this person and just trust everything he has to say.
Okay.
What you're doing is basically adopting their style rather than growing your style, because everybody plays poker a little bit differently. No two players are exactly the same. It's kind of like a fingerprint. So you want to kind of grow your game organically, even if you're working with a coach. I mean, I've talked with lots of players who have hired coaches who have steered them in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Why does that happen? Because you give yourself over completely to this coach and say, oh, you're now in control of my game. That is not the way to get coaching. Yeah. You go to a coach saying, this is what you want to work on, and you trust that they're going to help you to do that. And but you're also, keeping your eyes open and making sure that you're heading in the right direction. Yeah. It might mean that you go a month where you don't really know that you can trust them, but you trust them because you hired them. And after a month, if you see no progress, then you talk to that coach and say, all right, well, what's going on here? It's not because we know that this is because of variance. Like there's just something that's off.
Yeah.
If they don't give you an answer, fire them and go find another way.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfect. Just the difficulty, because many people ask me this question. I think that the variance we get in poker is really tricky, because the feedback we get when we are trying to improve is not, we get result oriented all the time. So sometimes we are trying to improve on this aspect of the game and we say, oh yeah, that's fine, I am improving on 3-bets or c-betting, etc. But it's not, it was just good luck, and sometimes it's bad luck. So what would you advise to be less result oriented? Like taking time and making notes and reviewing the game all the time?
Yeah, do exactly what I just mentioned. Have a good understanding of what your game looks like. So
taking notes really often.
Taking notes, but like using, so in the second book, I talk about a concept called the A to C game analysis.
Yeah, and you list the C game leaks, the B game, and the A game, and you take notes about what your game is in these three areas. Yeah.
Exactly, because then you have the ability to sort of just look at it at the end of your sessions and say, oh, okay, let's see, I made no C game mistakes today. I made a handful of B game mistakes, but I mostly played B game, so I give myself a B+.
Yeah, you are less result-oriented and more objective because you have a checklist after the session.
Yeah, because if you know that in the games that you're playing that your B game is profitable and you play your B game and the games didn't vary greatly, it was like, okay, yep, same kind of rough mixture of, pros to fish. Then if you lose 3 buy-ins in that day, then you could not have played so bad to have caused you to lose 3 buy-ins. Maybe, right, you were break even, but you certainly didn't lose 3 buy-ins that day.
Okay.
So the A to C game analysis creates that sort of objective feedback that counters the desire to only focus on the results feedback.
Okay, thank you for this precision. Okay, now it's a bit more funny and I don't know the word in English, so it's not that important. But do you have like one anecdote, anything relating your job or with your clients or on yourself, anything that it's kind of fun or surprising or that was shocking to you or awesome or surprising? I don't know.
There's not a whole lot that surprised me in the last, ever since I have worked with people in a professional capacity. I haven't really been surprised.
Really?
But
okay.
Yeah, because again, like to be surprised means that something would exist outside of what is sort of known, right?
Yeah.
And so like my training was like out here, right? In terms of the types of issues that are being dealt with, poker and performance and like the things that I'm dealing with like really exist within this narrow range. So, it's fairly well mapped. I'm not saying that I'm not learning, right? There's a difference between being surprised and being shocked by what I'm experiencing versus just learning and kind of iterating and having it grow and, hearing some small things that are unique. And that's typically what happens almost in every client session. Okay. There's something that they say or there's something that I spontaneously say that is a slightly new sort of piece. But yeah, it's been, yeah, at least 8 or 9 years since my early days of poker that I've been like kind of surprised or shocked.
Okay. So you never saw something like a top poker players that you said, wow, it's amazing. He's at top stakes. He's playing really great, but he's still lacking this simple skill, or no?
Yeah, I mean, so in that way, like the closest thing to it has been I've been surprised at how weak emotionally esports athletes are.
Yeah.
But they're as weak as poker players were, 8 to 10 years ago in my mind.
Okay.
But
they killed
sort of,
a lot in esports.
Yeah, and they don't they just, well, it's that, but they have very little understanding. There's a lot less awareness.
Yeah,
of these variations. Like you talked about for yourself, how just being home alone, it's hard to necessarily recognize that.
Yeah, that's
you're
right.
frustrated. So I think for esports athletes, it's a similar thing.
Okay. But with the big money we have in esports now, it's changing. Every 6 months, I see a change in the mental game approach, and a lot of teams are hiring coach. So, can you tell us one anecdote when you was really happily surprised by the actions taken by one of your clients to improve one specific league? Like you said in the book, whatever works. Do something that works for you, and yeah, that's fine. Did you have a client that any day he surprised you because he found a solution for his leak that you didn't necessarily think about, or it was really specific, like it could work only for him? Don't know if you see what I mean.
I do, yeah, and I think it's sort of the similar scenarios to that last answer. Yeah, I don't think people are that unique.
Okay.
Even though we have fingerprints, there is, again, like slight changes or adaptations, like with one client, I'm having him write a contract. Mm-hmm. That contract is like an employment contract. It's basically kind of like what he is agreeing to for the entire year.
Okay.
And it's just like an idea of a way of like, making a goal or making a plan that for him is just a little bit more, unique. But the idea behind it is no different than, kind of what, you're typically doing with goal setting or planning. It's just the idea of like writing this contract and signing it. For him just has like that just a stronger commitment to it, and that stronger commitment is something that we're using as a way of kind of breaking through his issues, and so that is a more unique strategy, but it's not something that is, it certainly could, I think many people watching this video right now probably could benefit from something like that. So it's not unique to him, it's not totally surprising, but it's just another example of how the tools and the strategies can evolve and be, a lot more kind of detailed, but the core principles behind it are not any different.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah. So it's the last question after the members' questions. So if you had only one advice to give to young people who want to make a living with poker, what would it be?
That it's okay to have poker dominate your life. That doesn't mean that you stop seeing your friends, you stop going out, you stop having fun, but you have to structure your time like poker is at the center of it. Like it is the most important thing, and everything else kind of fits around it.
Okay.
If you do it the other way around, as a young player kind of coming into the game, I just don't see how you're going to be able to make it, to a level where you're going to be able to be profitable long term. It's just going to be too hard. There's too big of a hill to climb. This is not 2009 where, with a little bit of intelligence and a little bit of practice and study, you can become, really dominant. Yeah. The game is very, very, very challenging right now. There's a lot more players that have come in, and there are definitely people who have left. I mean, the changes in the game have, so it's not like it's impossible, but you have to dedicate yourself like a professional would in other industries, like an athlete or, an entrepreneur. I mean, if you're starting a new business as a young person and you're spending a majority of your time doing other things, then how is that business going to grow?
Yeah, it's impossible to be successful.
Yeah.
You have to think about it a lot when you're in the shower, outside, when you're sleeping, even you dream about it. And in the morning, you think about it, you do it, and your life gravitates around this. And it's the same for poker. That's what you...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And there was one piece of advice, or one kind of like way of thinking that a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur told me a while back, which I really liked, which is that if you are the only person in your business, right? There's, as a poker player, that's the only way it can be, right? But if you're running a business and you're the only one, like as it is for me, I mean, I have other people, but it's not like if I'm not doing work, things are really stalling. If I go take out the trash, then my entire company is taking out the trash.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And it's a way of thinking. So if you go out and spend, every day you're going out to dinner with friends, or every weekend you're going out, partying, then that's where your business is. That's where your poker game
your
is.
business is not working and is going out with friends. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right.
Sometimes your business does need to go out and spend time with friends, but the majority of your time needs to be devoted towards poker. There's just no other way to be successful at this point.
Okay. Really great advice. So we have like 10 minutes and we will get a bit fast. We have 4 members that asked questions. The first is Daniel. Do you think that some scientific references in your books are like either outdated or at least challenged? And if yes, what kind of corrections or additions do you think could be useful?
The answer is no, because the scientific stuff that I referenced is so well established that at this point, nothing new has counteracted it, and I have a hard time imagining how something would. And I'm not saying that to be overconfident about the material. I'm saying that because they feel to me to be like real fundamental principles and truths for how the brain operates. And there's not a whole lot of research that I'm referencing, and that's purposeful. But if there is one thing that I would change about the book, it is that I would make the mental hand history that I talk about in chapter 4 of the first book and chapter 3 in the second book. I would make that a bigger deal. It really is something that a lot of players didn't do who read the book. They focus more on the injecting logic side of the strategy, when the mental hand history is actually the more important piece of the puzzle. Yep,
I agree, and you can even use the mental history for your life, because it's like structuring a journal, You are structuring your journaling, and you are venting and understanding and getting feedback about what you are understanding and thinking about solutions. And if you do this again and again and again, you get more lucid about issues, and you are creating your own solutions, in my experience at least. And
so I would say it's a structure for your journal. It's a structure for problem solving. So your problem solving ability changes because typically the way people solve problems, mentally and emotionally, is just too surface based. So your journal can be more effective, your thought process can be more effective, and your problem solving becomes more effective because that's basically what the tool is designed.
And you go deeper on the underlying issues, and you talk a lot. We didn't talk a lot about this today, but you have this message on your Skype profile that resolution don't get solved if you don't. I don't know if you say it yourself, it will be better. But
basically that like New Year's resolutions, right? When people get really motivated and inspired to change things, they fail when you don't consider the underlying reason why you even have to set that resolution to begin with.
Exactly.
So if your resolution is to be more focused and not use social media quite as much, if you're not understanding why you were in that position to begin with, then the resolution is unlikely to stick. I'm not saying it's not going to. Some people, but I typically put in the category of like 10 to 15% of people just need to focus on making the habit correction. But most people have an underlying problem that's not being addressed, and that is why that problem exists.
Yeah, and I read a lot of articles about this, and I think many psychologists research this for alcohol problems and nutrition problems, because a lot of time there are underlying issues like you eat because you feel empty or because you don't get fun and you get instant pleasure when you eat, etc., etc. But it's another topic and we don't have time. But yes, people, this advice is gold, and really try to find the underlying issues in your game and in your life. So we have questions from Maxime. How can we find a mental leak we are unconscious about, like desperation till fear of winning or stuff like that?
Yeah. Okay. So you just have to study it, like as if it's like a poker concept that you're trying to understand better. So I would, at the end of your sessions, start looking at the mistakes that you're making, not necessarily the lost hands, but start looking at your mistakes, ones that you know are mistakes, and start asking yourself the question, okay, what is happening in these moments? Why am I making these mistakes? And then you can start to say, okay, was it a loss of focus? Was there some emotion present, like anger or anxiety? And that becomes kind of the beginning of your research, where you're basically using verifiable mistakes as your access point to start to understand what variation is existing within the mind or within your emotional state to cause those mistakes to happen, because they don't happen randomly. Now, you can use the books, both the first book and the second book, as your tool to kind of train you on what to look for, how to interpret how specific thoughts or specific behaviors or actions start to kind of indicate what types of deeper flaws may be present. So, you know, you make a mistake because your mind goes blank, right? You just have no thoughts. Okay, if you don't know what that means, you know, the book is going to help you to figure out why that happens, right? And it happens because, you know, there's so much emotion present that the emotion shuts off higher brain function. But we need to know which one. Is it overconfidence? Is it that you're so fearful? Is it anger? But again, like the book can kind of help to make your education on how to sense what problems are there, you know, a bit more easy. But you want to begin kind of focused on those mistakes as your access point to that information.
Okay, that's perfect. And he say, how much time does it take for our brain to incorporate a new habit or behavior, according to you? And try to answer fast because we have 2 questions after that.
Okay. Time is the least relevant factor.
Okay. Okay.
Repetition is what matters more.
Yeah.
But repetition without resolution doesn't really get you there. So it's not as simple as just getting in the amount of time, just getting in the amount of reps. It's more of a complicated formula, and there's a lot of other variables at play.
Okay. Perfect.
But I guess to finish off.
Yeah.
But typically, it's 2 to 3 times longer than people think. So they think, oh, I can change this in a month. No, you talk like 3 to 6 months.
I read in a book that it takes like 2 weeks, 2 months to 2 years for the most difficult behavioral changes. But I don't know if it's viable.
It could take 5 years. I mean,
if you struggle a lot and you quit, yeah. Okay, so Olivier is asking us, you, not me, you, how can I handle the tilt I feel when there is a technical issue I have absolutely no control about, like internet connection suddenly going down, poker room crashes? It's like you said it, you are in the traffic and you can't do anything about that.
Yeah, exactly. So on the one hand, like the internet is a little bit tricky because you can have backup internet. But the poker room one is probably a bigger one. Like there are things truly beyond your control. But you need to start to understand why it is that you hate losing control, right? And some of it might be that you think that these things shouldn't happen, and so your expectations are out of line with reality, which says that technology will fail. And
change your expectations. No.
Exactly. Yeah, make your expectations more in line with reality. It's the same thing as understanding like the variance within the game. You're understanding the variance, you know, around the game. I mean, it's just like people who hate to wait in lines at the grocery store, or hate to wait in line, you know, checking out. It's like keep track of the number of times where you get lucky, where you go up and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And pay attention to the time. Right. So there are factors like if you go grocery shopping early in the morning, odds are good you're going to get an open lane.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you can start keeping track of time. Maybe there are certain times of day where your internet cuts out, where the poker room fails, and so you can start to find control through these patterns.
Yeah.
Point is, recalibrate your expectations and start to do some studying. It's not like you're completely. It's not like you have no control here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Gregory is asking us, can we solve a mental game leak with hypnosis, and does self-hypnosis work in order to decrease the effect of a leak in the moment?
Only if it attacks and corrects the underlying flaw.
Problems, okay.
Yeah. Now, in my experience, that hasn't been the case. But I do know of some people who have benefited from hypnosis and that it has worked at that level, I think. Okay. Just on some of the anecdotes I've gotten, but I haven't gotten like, year-long histories like, okay, this problem hasn't showed back up for several years. I haven't gotten that yet.
Okay.
My general experience has been that hypnosis has been something that you needed to continue to use in order to kind of maintain the effect. And so it becomes more like medication that you need to continue to take versus what I would be after, which is like the true resolution that actually solves it. But again, I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm just saying in my experience, I haven't seen it that way typically.
Perfect. And last question, Kevin is asking us, how can I stay confident in my game when I'm in a long period of bad run?
So here we've talked about this before. I would do several things, and most of them have to do with what happens on a regular basis, not just when you're in a bad run. Right? You create a balanced way of approaching the game, whether you're running well or running poorly, and that is how you actually handle running poorly better.
Yeah.
Right? So you're using the A to C game analysis to regularly make your mind more focused on quality on a daily basis and less on results. Right? You do that. If the bad run starts to happen, you use the journal and as a point to vent and get any frustrations out, any issues that you're having out, and to better understand them and to start to work through them early on, in the bad run. Because in the bad run, it's not like the bad run is the main cause, right? The bad run is a problem because all of your mental leaks just sort of get condensed into a smaller chunk. And they become bigger, right? You see it more obviously. So your hate losing tilt, your pressure, your the worries that you have about like kind of realizing your goals or realizing your potential, all of that stuff that comes out during the bad run existed when you were running well, right? They were in you when you were running well and making money, but they weren't being exposed as a problem because the situation didn't call for it.
Yeah.
So the point is you can work on these things regularly, and if you do that, then it's going to make it a lot easier to handle the bad run. And in other words, it's almost like you're preparing for the next bad run by working consistently and regularly on these problems.
Okay, that's good. I think we are fine. So if you have anything to add, feel free. I don't know.
No, just that lots of good questions, and I hope this has been helpful for everybody. And certainly, if you have other questions, like as you mentioned, post them out, and I'm happy to answer a few more.
Exactly. So if you have questions, ask them in French, and I'll send the best ones or the most liked ones to Jared, and he will answer just after that. So thanks a lot for your time, Jared. Everybody, if you want to learn more about the mental game of poker, of course, you have the links to buy the books, and we have a ton of many more mental game issues, issues of poker. You can watch it. Jared, have a good day in America. For me, it's a good night, and see you later.
Thank you, Simon. It's good to see you.
Bye.